Welcome to Radical Release, a healing series within There's No Way I Signed Up for This. This series was born in the in-between, the moments no one claps for, the silent breakdowns, the whispered prayers, the kind of healing that happens when no one's watching. This isn't about getting it all right. It's about learning to return to yourself with gentleness, with faith, and with enough grace to know that not having all the answers still means you're enough. Here, we talk about love after loss, peace after chaos, and how to hear God again, even when it's been quiet for a very long time. So take a breath. This is where we begin the radical release. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Radical Release. This series that's part of the There's No Way I Signed Up for This podcast. So we are now entering our last phase of the framework here, right? We spoke about forgiveness, we spoke about refocusing. Now we're talking about the realignment. And the next 3 episodes are going to focus on what the new looks like, right? We're going to talk about what things look like once you have made the decision to forgive, what things look like when you actually decide to walk away, and now what, right? We get times and situations where people are like, well, do this and do that and do this and do that, and then you do the this and you do the that, and the now what? So let's jump into this. Let's talk about the shift. Right? You've heard me talk about the void and what that is. But today we're going to talk about the shift and what life looks like when you are in the positive space. Well, a healing journey is positive, right? But not all the parts of the journey are or don't feel like it. So we're going to be talking about when the healing starts to feel good, like when you've recognized it and you're giving yourself a pat on the back. Now you want to start living like the healing worked or is working. So the scripture that's going to give us our grounding foundation for the next 20 minutes or so is Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? So there's a moment in your healing journey when you have to stop just talking about the work and start living like it's working. Sometimes we stay in the healing mode so long, right? We talk about the healing journey. That's all we talk about, right? It becomes your identity. And you're circling the same wounds, the same stories, the same sessions of hurt, the same seasons of hurt over and over again, because that's who you've been identified to be. So how do we realign ourselves? What exactly is the realignment that needs to happen in the healing journey? Think about it like your vehicle and you have to get your tires rotated, right? And it's a realignment. I probably need to do that right now. I leave that to my mechanic. When I take it there, whatever needs to be realigned, just make it happen. I don't know. But I know after it's done, my traction is better, right? So you can go and get all the things, but maybe just a tweak, a recalibration of a sense, right? And it just feels better. So when we're talking about realignment, we're asking, what would life look like if I believed the healing is actually taking root, is actually working? So this episode is about stepping into that new thing, what God's already doing, even if you can't fully see it, complete it yet, right? It's a mindset. And like a few minutes ago when I'm talking about, a lot of times you'll see people who are in a healing journey. So yes, give them credit for that, but they stay stuck in the event. Every time they talk, it's about the event. Every time they talk, it's about how they're hurting. Every time they talk, it's about who hurt them. And we don't ever seem to get beyond that space. And that's kind of what we want to focus on today. Healing can't just be about the homework. You've read the books, right? You've done journaling prompts. I've given you some. You've been praying. You've been meditating. But have you given yourself permission to step out of the pain? Have you given yourself permission to step out of what happened to you? It's a part of the journey where you can separate yourself from the experience. How do you know this has happened? Okay, so I work in forensic victimology and all those wonderful spaces when you're talking about criminology. And I just did a presentation at a conference about how survivor advocates have to really be aware of where their healing journey is. A lot of people want to step into the work because of their victimization. And they don't want this to happen to somebody else. But you have to be at a space in your journey where you're not going to be hurting yourself more or causing hurt to someone else. So when I am interviewing or talking to somebody who's thinking about going into the field or the work, and I know they have victimization, I find out or I see if this person can talk about the event without becoming emotional. What does that mean? So at this point, I can talk about my victimization and I am not emotionally impacted by it as if it was happening to me again. I have been able to move it out into my frontal lobe, the front part of the brain, and talk about it, separate it from self. Now, I have made decisions off of my victimization, right? So I know I can't deal with child pedophiles or child sexual abuse. Those are things I cannot deal with. I can work with sexual violence and domestic violence, but the child sexual violence, I know that's where my border is. But I can talk about all those victimizations without starting to cry or starting to break down. Because I have removed myself from the event. I am not that event. I am not what has happened to me. So when I'm talking about somebody and when they start talking about their experience, then you can see them emotionally responding, their body's emotionally responding. Then that tells me they're not ready to go into that space because those are some areas they're still working on. It's still sore. It's still bruised. It still hurts. And not to say once you get beyond those spaces, it doesn't still hurt, but your mind processes it in a different way where you're not reactivating that trauma. It's always going to be a part of you, yes, but how it impacts you in your day-to-day life is where we're looking at where you're at in the healing. So like I said, our foundational or grounding scripture is Isaiah 43:19. See, I am doing a new thing. And that's what we're talking about in the healing. You are a new person as you move beyond and move forward in your healing. When you only see yourself as the healing one, you miss the healed elements that you're becoming. And healed with a hard D, I never believe that somebody is healed. Healing is an ongoing process. We're human. Life is hard. Life is hard. And I don't care where you sit on that social economical space, what family you've been born into, what location you've been born into. Life brings hardship. So you're always healing from something with a G, not a D. When somebody says, and I think I've said this before, when somebody says, oh, I'm healed, hard D, I'm like, I'm side-eyeing you. I'm going to be 100% because it's an ongoing thing where the things that I have processed and dealt with a few years ago, yeah, I might be in a different space with those elements, but I guarantee you some things have happened recently. Some things have happened recently that I'm having to heal from. So healing is an ongoing thing. So when we're talking about releasing the identity of the wound, what does that mean? Or releasing the identity of the victim. And that's why word usage is so important. Changing or moving from victim to survivor, or some people use the word warrior, right? Whatever works. But no longer identifying with the event is key. Trauma for a lot of people becomes their identity badge. You know, when you talk to them, you're going to hear all about that story again. They have become that event. We subconsciously lead with it in conversations. We talk about it in our choices. We look at what it looks like in relationships. When you just meet somebody, you're going to have to excuse me because I've been through blah, 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 blah. There's so many different ways trauma shows up. And, it's a part of us, yes. So it's who we are in an identity in what makes us who we have become. But it does not have to be an ongoing loop of an event that starts presenting even before you get your full name out. Okay. Now, if you're in situations where you are a speaker, a trainer, such as myself, right? Where my trauma is the reason why I'm in the field that I'm in, yes. But I don't lead with that. Even in conversations, I don't lead with that in trainings. Even if the training is about the trauma, even if the training is about what happened to me or the traumatic event that happened to me, I don't lead with it because I don't see myself as a victim of those events. I'm not. I'm a survivor, right? It happened to me. I survived it. But it doesn't mean that's my badge. It's not my identity badge. There were many years I was in this field where I did not identify my trauma in my events to anything that I did. No one knew. No one knew. I was there and I'm training on the learning objectives. That's it. And then as I was healing, right? Going through my healing journey, I knew there was going to be a moment in my journey where I would be able to explain or express what my experience was so we could help the battery of knowledge or the research that's ongoing around how trauma impacts the brain. But it was not my identity. So I say all that to say, yes, recognize, yes, identify, yes. Look at the spaces you have been able to progress through, but don't make it who you are. Realignment means gently taking the badge off. You're still hurting, right? You still have memories. And yes, it still comes back. An example would be during the Diddy trial. I'm going to be 100% transparent here. And again, this will identify how I said healing is a G, not a hard D. So I've been removed from, or the last time I experienced physical domestic violence was in my undergrad year. So that healing journey has been going on for years, for decades. But I'm in the space where I can talk about what happened to me and what occurred to me and not have an emotional reaction to it, right? I can stay in my frontal lobe, the front part where it's just details and experiences and not activate or re-traumatize or reactivate the trauma. However, and some people might say, okay, well, you're healed, right? When the Diddy situation occurred, when they had the video of him beating Cassie when she was laying curled up on the floor and he was kicking at her, everything came back because I recognized the position Cassie was in. And so many victims, I don't care how long or how far they have been removed from the event, recognized the position she was in on the floor. Because I've been in that position. So all the things that I thought I had under control resurfaced and reactivated. So again, not thinking of pausing it, like, okay, well, we're here again. It's allowing that space. It's allowing you to understand it's not you're not falling backwards, but you have to understand that healing is an ongoing process. So before about a day or so, it was bothersome. You have to really protect yourself on what you choose to watch and what you allow in your mind, mentally, psychologically, because it can have an impact on your healing journey because it's an ongoing process. Your trauma can be reactivated. And then in the hearing, seeing what the charges that this person, weren't found guilty on. It was a reassault in a sense. So I'm using that example just to explain how it's an ongoing process. So at no point, when you say I'm healed and then something like that happens, you might feel that everything you've done was worth nothing because you're hurting again, you're crying again, you're upset again. And that's not the case. It's a step forward, step back some days, 5 steps forward, 10 steps back some days, but it's an ongoing process. So as we're going through the process, we still have to understand we have to release the identity of the wound. So when stuff does reactivate, I can still say, yeah, this is reactivating in me. This is causing me discomfort because of my own lived experiences, but I'm okay. It's normal. You know what's not normal? The trauma. That's the not normal part. You surviving it, and then when your brain gives you like, hey, remember this moment? It's a part of the process. So the more you're able to separate yourself from the identity of the wound, you're able to rebound a bit quicker. Because I'm sitting there and being reactivated and still calling myself a victim or still identifying to that. It's going to take much longer to rebound from it, and it might cause you to hurt more intensely. It's kind of like a wound that you have on your body, and you need to leave it alone. Let it heal. Or if you've broken a bone or some type of injury, let it rest, right? The RICE acronym, like rest, ice, circulation, elevate. I forgot what the C was. But rest is the first part of the acronym. You have to let it rest. If you broke an ankle, I'm going for the broken ankle because, I have ankle issues, knee issues, all the issues. But you can't just get out there and run on it and continually run on it. And that's what identifying with the wound does. You don't allow yourself to rest and move beyond that part of your journey. And so we want to start practicing wholeness. And you can do that even before you feel whole. So, looking at G, healing with the G, isn't just waiting for the feeling. You have to already align yourself with what it feels like when you can wake up and that's not the first thing you think about. Isn't that such a good feeling? And let's not even look at trauma in the sense of some of the big ones I spoke about, but trauma in the sense of maybe a breakup, a nasty breakup, or not so nasty breakup, but somebody who was a really, really major part in your life just isn't there anymore. And that can be for many reasons. And as you move beyond, right, forward past the event of separation, whatever caused it, where you think about that person the first thing you wake up in the morning. I know when I lost my mom, I remember waking up from a dream and I tried to call her. And the rude awakening it was when it was like, oh, she's gone. But even in breakups, right? There's moments where you're thinking about that person on a regular basis. But sooner or later, you stop. And it's a gradual thing. But people don't celebrate that. Like, okay, it took me to get to 3:00 today in the afternoon before that person crossed my mind. Versus right when I woke up some weeks back. Oh my goodness, I didn't think about that person at all today. Like, these are small victories that help you align with the shift that's happening. So, depending on the grief, the trauma, or whatever it is you experience, celebrate your wins. Even if you think they're small, they're not, because they're all adding up to where you're trying to get to in your journey. So some ways you can do this is creating little routines of what brings you joy instead of routines of recovery. Just the wording, right? They could still be routines of recovery because that's what you're doing. But doesn't it sound so much nicer when they're routines of joy? You don't have to use the word joy. You can use whatever you want to use. But what you're doing is aligning yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, psychologically to the outcome and not maintaining attachment to the wound. So I'm going to say that again. Aligning yourself to the outcome, not staying attached to the wound. So doing this might have you making decisions, but your decisions making are being based on where you want to go, where you need to be, where you're trying to get to, and not out of fear of where you've been. We don't want fear-based decision making, right? We want decision making based on where you're trying to get to, because you're not back there anymore. So why would I make decisions based on the wound? I want to be a more healed version of myself. That's a soft D. More healed version of myself, meaning there's still more to go. So I'm going to make decisions based on where I'm trying to get to. Still using the knowledge, right? And the lessons learned from what happened to me. Give me a profile and I can spot out certain things so quick, but that doesn't mean I'm living in my wound. I just have the ability now, based on the lessons that I've experienced, to make decisions moving forward of that's not what I want. That is not what I want in my life. So an example, not to go too deep, let's give an easy example. I would not want to be in a relationship with somebody who was a heavy drinker or drug user. I'm not. That's based on lessons learned from previous experiences, right? So now I can make decisions based on those lessons learned because this is where I want to go moving forward. So if that pops up in a conversation when I'm getting to know somebody, I'm like, meh, next. So that's what I mean when I'm saying making decisions based on your clarity and based on where you're headed, not to where you've been. Like if I say, well, it's not that big of a deal, maybe we can work on it together. No, because now I'm looking backwards at the wounding and actually putting myself in a situation where I'm still attached to it. So hopefully that makes sense. So now I'm going to give you some reflection questions. Again, questions to think about, to meditate on, and really be honest with yourself. And you can answer these in your head as you hear me talking, or you can play it back, write it down. But really take some time to sit with them to really give you an indicator of where you're at. So the first question is, where in my life am I still leading with my wounds instead of my wisdom? That could look like your fear-based decision-making. That can be going back to behaviors and maladaptive behaviors that you once got away from, right? This is where you have to be honest with yourself. Again, where in my life am I still leading with my wounds instead of my wisdom? The next question is, what does living like the healing is working look like for me? How do you know? How do you know? One way people know is an event could occur that happened previously and you had a negative response, or you responded really in a place or a space you didn't like how you responded. If that same thing happens to you, you respond differently now. That's just an example. So what does living like the healing is working? What does that look like? Another example would be, okay, ghosting, being ghosted. Like back in the day, if I was ghosted, I would take it personally. What wasn't it about me? Me. I don't do that now. If I get ghosted now, it's like, that's all on the other person. That hasn't, whatever occurred, if there's something very upfront that I did, I'll take accountability. But if it's just like literally out the blue, I'm not questioning what I did. For me, it's something's going on the other end of that, and good luck to you. But I'm not taking it personal. I'm not internalizing it. So that for me is an example of how the healing journey is working. Instead of me going and shutting down, and now I'm picking at myself, like, do I talk funny and do I do this, that, and the other? I don't do any of that anymore. It's, well, thank you for that experience when I've had it, or how I've had it, or thank you for leaving, whatever that is, depending on who it was. But that's just an example for me of how I know the healing is working. And then third, what would change if I trusted that the new thing was already happening? The new you is already here. In your life right now, what would look different? What would change if you trusted that your new way of being was already happening? So those are your reflection questions. Where in my life am I still leading with my wounds instead of my wisdom? What does living like the healing is working look like for me? And what would change if I trusted that the new thing, the new me, was already here? So hopefully this was a good episode to help start this conversation about realignment. Right? We already got through the forgiveness and the refocusing. Now we have to realign, recalibrate, right? Your GPS, recalibrating to the destination. Because it's not where you start, it's where you end, right? So we want to make sure we're aligning ourselves to the destination we're trying to get to. Because what makes sense if you're trying to get to point B, but in the destination, you still have point A. And point A was what hurt you. So it's time to realign, get focused in, get locked in, and start moving as if it's already occurring. So I want to thank you all for being with me today and give you an affirmation to take with you. And I really am excited as we round out these final episodes together. So that affirmation is, I am not only healing, I've also healed in places already. I step into what God is doing, even if I can't see the whole picture yet. So just keep in mind, as you move forward, keep focused, but make sure your focus is aligned where you're trying to get to, because that's important. All right, I want everybody to take care and stay safe, and I'll speak with you next time.
Trust His love, real every sky.